My beloved Cardinal, Your Eminence, Vincent Nicholas, dear friends, brothers, sisters, greetings from Myanmar, Inglaba. Buongiorno a tutti. It gives me a great pleasure to be in the company of men and women whose dynamic compassion constantly knocks the doors of world's conscience against the mortal sin of the modern times, the commodification of human beings. Amidst a culture of indifference, gathering like this affirm once again to affirm boldly, all of us are caught in inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. With moral courage, we confront the question, where is your brother? Where is your sister? That is a pilgrimage of hope. To all of you, my deep respect. We gather at a very grim moment in history. Despite great efforts of the good people of the world against the scourge of this modern-day slavery, the spiraling conflict in places like Ukraine and Myanmar has infused a new and desperate urgency into this issue. This is an epoch of a moral catastrophe. The moral holocaust of commodification of human fragility rages. It is compounded by unscrupulous monetizing of human tears and vulnerability. It happens in every country, in war zones where millions are fleeing, while thousands are exhibiting poignant show of generosity to war-affected. The heartless march trafficking wolves, masquerading as benign helpers, rolls on. So there is another war awaits us all. We are all in battlefront, the confrontation of good against evil. Pope Francis made anti-human trafficking as one of the signature campaigns of his papacy. Speaking to the participants of the World Day of Prayer for Victims of Human Trafficking, the Pope affirmed, the Catholic Church intends to intervene in every phase of human trafficking. She wants to protect them from deception and solicitation. She wants to find them and free them when they are transported and reduced to slavery. She wants to assist them when they are free. Every Christian is mandated with this mission. To be a Christian today is to wage a war against human trafficking. The ILO estimates that human trafficking generates $150.2 billion in illegal profits each year, the third biggest illicit economy in the world, next only to arms sales and earnings of the drug cartels. During this Paschal season, the metaphor that comes to our mind is the modern-day pharaohs, the human traffickers. Yahweh never condoned slavery of the Hebrews. The robust intervention of Yahweh when the angels slay the history of the slaves owners of Egypt is the powerful reminder to every human being to resist every affront to human dignity through commodification of a human body, human labor, and involuntary servitude. Just remembers her history is soaked with the painful footprints of human trafficking of Joseph in the Old Testament, the exile and enslavement of the Jews. The Bible in its threshold chapters uphold the dignity of human beings as created in God's image. For the Christian, this is a basic tenet of his faith. Any compromise on this premise is a compromise on our faith. Pope Francis is very candid. Human trafficking is a crime against humanity because it denies the human dignity of the victim, seeing him or her only as a piece of merchandise to be used to enrich or give pleasure to another. The gravity of the problem. Trafficking in persons is a modern-day form of slavery, and it is the largest manifestation of slavery today. The three most common types of human trafficking are sex trafficking and debt bondage and forced labor, also known as involuntary servitude. Escalating this human tragedy is the added agonies of forced marriage, forced begging, forced reproduction. I shall speak later about the horror of emerging forms of new human cannibalism. No country is safe from this nefarious trait. Preying on the world's most marginalized groups, criminal gangs traffic victims from 127 countries and export them as commodities to 137 countries. Even among them, children and women form a major percentage of Gulliver victims. 1 in every 5 victims is a child. 2/3 of world's traffic victims are women. We are expandable, commodifiable, and marketable. A new dark logic rules the criminal world without much resistance. Emerging new type of cannibalism. Any international gathering on human trafficking needs to take cognizance of the nefarious new entrant into human trafficking vocabulary, the new forms of cannibalism. This is understandably a controversial term, but its impending danger are never to be minimized in our urge for caution. The gravity of human trafficking threatens the very existence of the communities in many countries. A new threat emerges from a surprisingly new sector, the medical services. Commendable development of medical science in the last decades brings great hopes. Hidden in this mountain of hope is the most unscrupulous tunnels of exploitation of the most vulnerable people, especially in poor countries of Asia and Africa. Commodification of human body parts is a new feature of the global healthcare market. The result is a wide availability of low-cost resources needed for specific treatments, organs, human materials, surrogate mothers, etc., making it more or less illegal or rent or purchase human body parts of socially disadvantaged persons in order to meet the needs of patients who can afford the cost of those medical services. This is $1 billion market benefiting mostly the rich, often in collusion of not a few medical professionals. Aiming to better understand various aspects of this new market and assess its implications for the future, an international and multidisciplinary symposium took place in Geneva, Switzerland on February the 6th and 7th, 2014. Its conclusion was shattering, calling it a kind of cannibal market, a new type of trade based on increasing social inequalities in most societies and between countries is developing. The result is an economy that is comparable not only to a neo-colonial one, but also to a kind of cannibal market. The urgent challenge to the church and the civil society. The emergence of this cannibal market has significant human, social, medical, economic, legal, religious, and ethical implications. Religious groups are understandably cautious of this new entrant. The Catholic Church has been in the forefront of a campaign against human trafficking. Pope Francis called for a threefold commitment on the institutional level: prevention, victim protection, and the legal prosecution of perpetrators. Following the Pope's directive, there is an urgent, proactive, preventive process needs to be planned and implemented to resist this new kind of commodification of human beings, since it does not involve the actual movement of people, but controlling and commodifying their body parts. A moral and ethical crisis has emerged. The Church and the partners are confronted with a new unsettling reality impacting thousands of the most vulnerable, especially the women and the children. Church response. The massive development in medical science in the last 2 decades has benefited mostly rich countries. Organ and other body parts have become commodities traded through online markets. This was made possible by lack of sufficiently binding legislation and the existence of large number of socially and economically vulnerable people. Organ trade is becoming an organized crime. According to Global Financial Integrity, the trade features in scale and profit alongside the illicit trade in drugs, wildlife, and weapons, with an estimated annual profit of US dollars 1.7 billion, mentioned in May 2017. Defined as a form of human trafficking, the prevailing discourse on the organ trade is that of an organized crime driven by mafia-like networks that exploit the poor of their organs. Our active participation is needed in fortifying the efforts of the socially conscious scientists and human rights lawyers. Greater and wider involvement of the Church in creating awareness of the unregulated markets to aid assistance and productive technology, particularly the development of commercial surrogacy exploiting the gullibility of the poor. Resisting through global campaigns the growing mafia-like context of harvesting organs to feed the lucrative market for transplantations. Campaign for oversight mechanisms of private institutions that collect, store, and commodify human materials, embryos, blood, tissues, etc. Globalization brought great benefit to the society, but it also brought great havoc, like human trafficking, a dark side. Resistance to this dark side has brought great dignity to millions. The Church continues to be a vibrant partner to all global efforts. Now is the call to turn our attention more to the emerging global market of human cannibalism. Raising awareness and campaigning have been two-pronged approaches of the Church in combating human trafficking. As a global institution, linking both the developed nations who are agents of commodification, create illegal wealth, and poor countries of the world where vulnerable people are tricked into part with the body parts, the Church can promote a safe environment both in poor countries and rich countries. 4 areas need the attention and awareness of building of the local churches to help the people, especially those in vulnerable social context. 1. Society. Human trafficking victimizes individuals affected in all areas of their lives. It undermines family ties and leads to societal stigmatization. 2. Policy. As it involves transitional movement, human trafficking relates directly to debates on migration policy and human rights. 3. Economy. Trafficking in persons results in loss of human resources, reductions in tax revenue, and the disruption of the illicit cycle of the economy from migrants and their families to traffickers and their associates. 4. Rule of law. As a criminal act, trafficking violates the rule of law, threatening national jurisdictions and international law. Human trafficking, a festering wound in humanity. Pope called it a wound against our contemporary society. The Bible extolled human creation as God Himself created all in His image. Christ's incarnation further purified the wounded humanity. Now those sacred traditions are threatened by the onslaught of commodification of the sacredness of a human body and its parts. Every poor person lives in his or her Babylonian exile. When they do not have control over their own body, they verily cry out, "How can we sing the Lord's song in an alien land and body?" Human trafficking is the modern burning bush. The Lord of history calls out to the Church to be the modern-day Moses with a cry, "I have heard my people cry." The problem looks big, as Moses feared to face the pharaohs of his time. The international mafia threatens, and like Moses, we are called out to the Lord. How can this be? How can we face the modern-day pharaohs of human cannibalism and commodification? The Lord assures us, "I will be with you always." Yes, it is the Lord of history, the loving, living, and liberating God who is calling us to the global mission. With our women religious contributing so much to the anti-human trafficking efforts through Talitha Kum, the Church needs to be in solidarity with all our religious, our parishes, like-minded groups. We are called to participation, share, and be mission with the victims and survivors of human trafficking, commodification, and cannibalism. I am sure, like Moses, we too shall see the promised land of justice, peace, and human rights. Thank you very much to all of you for your attention.